Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving deep into a story so unsettling, so shrouded in mystery, that it challenges everything we thought we knew about love, loss, and the dark secrets families can hide. Imagine standing at the funeral of the person you believed was your soulmate, your rock, the man you built your entire life with. The air is heavy with grief, tears fall silently, and then a stranger appears. A man you've never seen before, who stands by the coffin not with sorrow, but with an unsettling glint in his eyes, uttering words that rip open a wound far deeper than mere grief. He wasn't meant to die like this. This isn't just a story about a sudden death. It's a chilling journey into a past carefully buried, a truth so shocking it could shatter a family, and the desperate fight of a woman to uncover who her husband truly was and why he truly died. Get ready, because what Amelia discovered at that funeral would change her life forever, plunging her into a world of betrayal, lies, and a horrifying revelation that the man in the coffin wasn't just her husband. He was someone else's son, and his death was no accident. That morning, the October chill permeated the skin, carrying the distinctive damp scent of autumn and something heavier, the unspoken odor of sorrow. Rosewood Funeral Home, usually steeped in solemn silence, was now torn apart by suppressed sobs and heavy sighs. Inside, amidst the pure white wreaths and flickering candlelight, a mahogany coffin rested solemnly, containing a truth no one dared to confront, or at least, no one was brave enough to believe. At the heart of this tragedy was Amelia, a 35-year-old woman, slender, with long brown hair partially obscuring a face drenched in tears. Her eyes were swollen and deeply shadowed from sleepless nights, now reflecting only a terrifying emptiness. She stood there, amidst whispered condolences and hurried hugs, like a living statue, motionless and lifeless. Today was the funeral of her beloved husband, David, a man to whom she had dedicated 15 years of her life in love and trust. David, who had always been her steady anchor, the sunshine of her life, now lay still in the cold coffin. He had passed away too suddenly, a tragic car accident on a deserted road, leaving behind an unfillable void in Amelia's heart and in her young daughter, Lily, who was only 10. Lily, with her innocent, wide eyes, couldn't yet fully comprehend this immense loss. She clung tightly to her mother's hand, occasionally glancing up at the coffin, as if waiting for her father to wake up and embrace her. Amelia vividly remembered the day David proposed to her. Under a brilliant sunset on the beach, he knelt, offering her a simple yet meaningful engagement ring, and promised to love her for life. That promise echoed in her mind, now sounding bitterly ironic. 15 years had passed, and they had built a happy little family, filled with laughter and shared dreams. David was a wonderful husband, an exemplary father. He always knew how to make Amelia feel loved and cherished. He was a family man, always putting his wife and child first. Their life, though not wealthy, was always filled with warmth and laughter. It was a love every girl dreamed of, a marriage everyone admired. But then tragedy struck. A fateful midnight phone call, an urgent voice from a police officer, tore apart all of Amelia's dreams and happiness. David was dead. He had left forever, leaving her alone with Lily and an uncertain future. From that day on, Amelia's world seemed to crumble. She lived in a fog of pain and despair. Every morning she woke up, she had to face the harsh reality that David was no longer by her side. The empty house, the nostalgic mementos, and even the image of innocent Lily calling out for her father, all were like knives twisting in her heart. Today's funeral was supposed to be an occasion for everyone to bid farewell to David one last time, to say goodbye and accept the painful truth. But no, a sense of unease kept creeping into Amelia's mind, something intangible, hard to name, but it had haunted her since she stepped into the funeral home. Everything felt wrong. The immense pain clouded her reason, but a woman's intuition told her something was amiss. She looked at the mourners, familiar and unfamiliar faces alike. There were David's old college friends, his colleagues from the architectural firm, and even close neighbors. Everyone spoke of David with regret and sorrow. They talked about his warm smile, his kindness, and his enthusiasm. Each story was a painful reminder of the loss. Amelia nodded, listening, trying to manage a weak smile, but her mind was preoccupied with a strange thought. There was someone there, a man she had never seen before. He stood in the back, away from the main crowd, shrouded in a dark, impeccably tailored suit that seemed to absorb all the light around him. His presence was a stark contrast to the subdued grief of the other mourners. He wasn't crying, he wasn't offering condolences. He simply stood there, watching. Not watching the coffin, not watching Amelia, but watching something else. His gaze seemed to drift around the room, scrutinizing every corner, every shadow, as if searching for something or someone. There was an intensity in his eyes that made Amelia shiver, a cold, calculating look that felt utterly out of place at a funeral. He looked to be in his late 50s, maybe early 60s, with salt and pepper hair, neatly combed back, and a stern, unreadable expression. He didn't fit in, and yet he seemed to belong. It was as if he was part of the tragedy, but not in the way everyone else was. Amelia tried to dismiss it as her grief playing tricks on her, conjuring up strange figures in her heightened emotional state. But she couldn't shake off the feeling that his eyes, though never directly meeting hers, seemed to acknowledge her presence, to recognize her, in a way that was deeply unsettling. Who was he? Why was he here? And why did his presence feel so wrong? As the service began, the eulogies flowed, each one painting a picture of David's kindness, his passion, his unwavering dedication to his family. Amelia listened, her heart aching, tears silently streaming down her cheeks. Lily snuggled against her, occasionally hiccuped, her small hand clutching Amelia's dress. The air was heavy with unspoken words, with memories that were both beautiful and agonizing. Then, a sudden commotion, a quiet gasp rippled through the room. Amelia looked up, her tear-filled eyes struggling to focus. The man in the dark suit, the stranger, had moved. He was no longer at the back. He had slowly, almost imperceptibly, made his way to the front of the room, standing beside the open casket. His back was to the congregation, his shoulders broad and stiff. He reached out a hand, a strong, calloused hand, and gently, almost reverently, touched the face of David in the coffin. A collective murmur spread through the room. Who was this man? Why was he allowed such intimacy? Even the funeral director, a man of stoic professionalism, looked momentarily startled, though he quickly regained his composure. Amelia felt a cold dread crawl up her spine. This wasn't just a random stranger. There was something more. The way he touched David, the almost possessive gesture, it was too personal, too familiar. He then slowly turned, his gaze sweeping across the room, lingering for a fraction of a second on Amelia before moving on. And in that fleeting moment, Amelia saw something in his eyes, something that sent a jolt of ice through her veins. It wasn't sorrow. It wasn't grief. It was recognition. And something else, something cold and unyielding, like a steel trap. A flicker of triumph? It was impossible, unthinkable, but the thought, once planted, refused to leave. And then he spoke. His voice, deep and resonant, cut through the hushed silence of the funeral home, not with words of condolence, but with a single, chilling phrase. He wasn't meant to die like this. The words hung in the air, thick with unspoken meaning, before he turned and walked out, as silently and mysteriously as he had appeared. He didn't look back. He didn't explain. He just left, leaving behind a trail of confusion and a fresh wave of unease in the already grief-stricken room. Amelia was stunned. What did he mean? He wasn't meant to die like this. The words echoed in her mind, planting a seed of doubt that began to sprout into a terrifying suspicion. Was David's death not an accident? Was there something more, something sinister, hidden beneath the surface of this seemingly tragic event? The image of the stranger's cold, triumphant eyes flashed before her. Who was he? And what did he know? The comfortable world Amelia had known, already shattered by David's death, now felt like it was crumbling even further, revealing dark, unknown depths beneath. Her grief was no longer pure. It was now tainted with a chilling sense of foreboding, a premonition that this funeral was not an end, but merely the beginning of something far more terrifying. The night after the funeral, Amelia couldn't sleep a wink. The vast bed felt empty, cold, and every gesture, every habit of David now felt like needles piercing her heart. Her tears had dried, leaving only emptiness and the haunting image of the strange man. He wasn't meant to die like this. The phrase echoed in her mind, a refrain of doubt. She no longer believed in the story of the tragic accident. Her intuition told her there was a hidden secret, a dark conspiracy waiting to be exposed. Amelia knew she had to act. David was gone, but she couldn't let him go in ambiguity, in a death that might not have been fate. She owed it to him, to herself, and most of all to Lily, the truth. She needed to find that mysterious man. But how? She didn't even know his name. The next morning, with renewed determination, Amelia began her own investigation. She sifted through David's photographs, trying to find any strange face that resembled the man. She searched his old phone directories, hoping to find an unfamiliar name. She even called a few of David's closest friends, people she trusted, asking if they recognized anyone particular at the funeral. Most replied that they were too grief-stricken to pay much attention to those around them. But one person, Mark, David's best friend since childhood, seemed flustered when Amelia described the man. Mark was an honest, straightforward man, working in law. He had always been David's most trusted confidant. What did he look like, Amelia? Mark's voice over the phone sounded strained. Amelia meticulously described every detail, from his salt and pepper hair, stern expression, to his build and dark suit. When she mentioned the phrase, "He wasn't meant to die like this," Mark fell silent for a long moment, a silence that sent shivers down Amelia's spine. "Amelia?" Mark finally spoke, his voice low. "Are you sure? Maybe you're too distraught and misheard." "I didn't mishear, Mark. He said exactly that." Amelia insisted. "Do you know who he is?" A heavy sigh echoed back. I don't know, but I'll make some inquiries. Don't worry too much, Amelia. Let me handle this." But Amelia knew Mark was hiding something. His evasiveness, his changed tone, all signaled that Mark knew more than he was letting on. This only amplified her suspicion. Her relationship with David's closest circle now felt more complicated than ever. Who could she trust? Who was hiding secrets? A few days later, Mark called back. He had investigated. "Amelia, I've tried to find information about that man. No one on our guest list matches your description. I also asked some of David's former colleagues. No one knew him." "Are you serious?" Amelia couldn't believe it. "How can that be? He was clearly there, standing right next to the coffin." "I know, Amelia. I find it strange too, but I've searched thoroughly." Mark's voice sounded tired. "Amelia, don't overthink it. An accident is an accident. Don't make yourself suffer more." However, Mark's advice only strengthened Amelia's resolve. If Mark couldn't find him, perhaps there was a reason. Perhaps the man didn't want to be found. Perhaps he was connected to a secret David had hidden, a secret that had now come back to haunt his family. Amelia began to search through all of David's belongings. She couldn't believe her husband had any secrets, but now she was forced to confront that possibility. She checked his mailbox, old boxes in the attic, and even the files in David's home office. He was a talented architect, always busy with projects. Could there be a clue among his blueprints, his complex contracts? One late night, with Lily sound asleep, Amelia sat amidst piles of documents, old letters, and David's personal effects. She found an old wooden box, tucked deep in his closet, at the bottom of a stack of unused sweaters. The box looked ancient, as if it had been stored for a very long time. David had never mentioned it. Opening it, Amelia found a small, leather-bound journal inside, discolored with age. Beside it were a few faded old photographs, and a small key without any markings. Amelia picked up the journal. The cover had a large, stylized capital carved into it. Not David's D, But whose was it? She opened it, scanning the yellowed pages. The handwriting inside wasn't David's. It was softer, more flowing, yet carried a deep sadness. The dates recorded were from long ago, before she and David had even met. They were notes about a forbidden love, about shattered dreams, and about an inconsolable loss. The girl in the journal, a woman named Anna, wrote about the man she loved, a man who had mysteriously disappeared from her life, leaving her with a broken heart and an unspeakable secret. The last lines of the journal made Amelia's heart clench. He abandoned me, left everything behind. I can't bear it anymore. Our child. What will become of it without a father? Our child? Amelia reread that sentence. This was the journal of Anna, who had loved a mysterious man and had a child with him. But why would David keep this journal? And what was this key for? Among the old photographs, one particularly caught her eye. It was a picture of a young, beautiful woman, with curly brown hair and sad eyes. It was definitely Anna. Beside her was a newborn baby boy, wrapped in a white blanket. And standing behind them, a man, but his face was obscured by reflected light. However, Amelia could make out a small part of his face, the lines of his jawbone and his dark hair. There was something eerily familiar about this man's silhouette. Amelia looked closer at the photo. That shadow, that figure, it was chillingly familiar. She pulled out another photo of David, their wedding picture. She placed the two photos side by side. And then, she realized, although the face in the old photo was obscured, the shape, the way he stood, even the remaining hair of that man, was too similar to David. A shock ran through Amelia. David had a child with another woman before they got married? A child he had never told her about? Her heart ached, not just from the betrayal, but from the feeling of being deceived. Was their entire marriage a grand lie? She flipped through the journal pages again, searching for the man's name. Anna only referred to him as he or my love. No name, no address, only pain and despair. But there was a small detail she had overlooked earlier. On the last page, below the words "our child," there was a tiny, almost invisible line, written in a different ink. She came looking for him. She's exactly like him. So the child wasn't a boy as Amelia thought, but a girl? This made everything even more complicated. Amelia felt dizzy. David had a secret daughter? A daughter who was now grown and looking for him? Was this connected to David's death? And then, a thought flashed in Amelia's mind, cold as a blade. The strange man at the funeral. His eyes. His words. He wasn't meant to die like this. Could it be that David had hidden a secret so big that it had killed him? And could that strange man be a part of that secret? Amelia felt herself being pushed into a more dangerous situation than ever before. She had believed she knew David better than anyone. But now, she realized he had a secret life, a past he had never shared. The pain of losing her husband mixed with rage and fear. She no longer knew who to trust. Mark, David's best friend, seemed to be hiding something. Did he know about Anna and this secret child? The deeper she delved into David's past, the more Amelia felt herself sinking into a bottomless pit. Each clue only led to more questions, and each question revealed another layer of mystery. She knew she couldn't stop. She had to find the truth, no matter how devastating it might be. She had to know who David truly was, and why he had to die. Despair enveloped her, but deep down, a tiny spark of hope still flickered, hope that she could find the answers to all these mysteries, and bring justice to David, if he had indeed been murdered. She clutched the journal tightly. It was the only clue she had, and she knew that her search for the truth had only just begun. The small key from David's box haunted Amelia. It didn't belong to anything in their house. She had tried opening every locked cabinet, every secret drawer, but nothing fit. The obsession with the strange man and Anna's journal only fueled her urgency to find the meaning of this key. She knew this was the most important clue, the door to David's deepest secrets. Amelia recalled an afternoon when David and she strolled through his old neighborhood. He had once mentioned an old apartment he lived in during his student days, near a small coffee shop called Corner Cafe. He said he had fond memories there. Could this key be for that apartment? It was a tiny glimmer of hope, but in this desperate situation, Amelia clung to anything. Deciding to act, Amelia sent Lily to her grandmother's house for a few days, citing the need for time to sort things out after the funeral. She didn't want Lily involved in this, at least not until she knew exactly what was happening. With the key in hand and a heart full of anxiety, Amelia drove to the old neighborhood David had mentioned. The neighborhood had changed quite a bit, but Corner Cafe was still there, nestled modestly among newer buildings. Amelia parked her car and began to walk, trying to recall David's description of the apartment. Finally, she found an old, dilapidated apartment building, hidden in a small alley, its exterior moss-covered, seemingly forgotten by time. The heavy wooden front door looked like it hadn't been painted in decades. She tried the key. A soft click echoed, and the door opened. Inside was a dark, damp hallway, with old wooden stairs creaking under each step. Amelia went up to the second floor, where David had said his apartment was. She found another wooden door, similarly old, with the faded number 2B carved into it. Her heart pounded. She inserted the key into the lock, turning it gently. The door swung open. Inside, the apartment was a small, dusty, and stuffy space. The curtains were drawn, blocking all natural light, plunging the room into darkness. A thick layer of dust covered every object, indicating that no one had set foot in here for a very long time. There was a small table, a few old chairs, and an empty bookshelf. Nothing special, no clues. Amelia felt utterly disappointed. She had hoped to find a secret treasure, but there was only emptiness. She was about to turn away, but then, something in the corner of the room caught her attention. A floorboard was slightly raised, not fitting flush with the surrounding planks. Amelia knelt down, gently prying it with her fingernail. The board popped open, revealing a small space underneath. Inside was an old, rusty metal box, like those used for storing valuables in movies. With trembling hands, Amelia opened the box. Inside were a stack of old, discolored documents and a sealed envelope. She took out the envelope first. There was no recipient's name on it, only David's handwriting. "When I'm no longer here." Amelia swallowed hard. He had prepared for this? She opened the envelope. Inside was a long, handwritten letter from David. She began to read, each line like a knife piercing her heart, revealing a horrifying secret more terrible than anything she had ever imagined. The letter began with David's profound apology. He confessed that he had kept a terrible secret his entire life, a secret that had haunted him and ultimately led to his death. He recounted his past, a past full of pain and guilt that he had tried to bury. He wasn't an orphan, as he had told Amelia. He had a father he had never dared to mention. His name was Richard Vance, a successful but ruthless businessman, head of a large financial conglomerate. Richard was a powerful man, but also an autocratic and violent one. David was the result of an extramarital affair between Richard and a poor woman, Anna, the very woman in the journal Amelia had found. Richard never acknowledged David as his son. He forced Anna to abandon David, threatening to destroy her life and her family if she didn't comply. Anna, in despair and fear, fled after giving birth to David, but couldn't abandon her child. She raised David in loneliness and sickness during his early years. When David was young, Anna died of a serious illness, leaving him alone. He lived in an orphanage until he was old enough to be independent. However, Richard Vance, though he didn't acknowledge him, secretly kept tabs on David. He had subtly controlled David's life, ensuring he had a good enough life, but never revealing their father-son relationship. David knew of Richard's existence, knew he was his father, but he hated him for what he had done to his mother. He swore he would never contact him, but fate ironically intervened. In the letter, David wrote that a few months ago, Richard had sought him out. Richard had contracted a terminal illness, and he needed a bone marrow donor to save his life. And the only suitable donor was David. Richard had demanded David donate marrow, and in return, he promised to share a large portion of his fortune with David. David refused. He hated the father who had abandoned him and his mother. He couldn't forgive Richard. However, Richard was a man who didn't accept failure. He began to threaten. First David's job, then the safety of Amelia and Lily. He said that if David didn't comply, he would destroy the lives of everyone David loved. He had gathered enough information about Amelia and Lily, knew everything about them. David knew Richard had enough power to carry out that threat. He was trapped. He wasn't meant to die like this. That phrase from the strange man echoed in Amelia's mind. Now she understood. That strange man was Richard Vance. It was him, David's father, who had come to the funeral to confirm that his plan had succeeded. The letter continued, David recounting his desperate plan. He couldn't let Richard harm his family. He also couldn't bring himself to kill the father he hated, but he also didn't want to donate marrow to him. So he had planned to fake his own death. He had staged the car accident with the help of an old friend, a computer and engineering expert, whom David had trusted implicitly. He wanted to disappear to make Richard believe he was dead, and his family would be safe. But the plan had gone horribly wrong. He wrote that someone had learned of his plan and betrayed him. That person had revealed everything to Richard, and Richard had changed the original plan. The car accident wasn't fake. It had become real. David had been murdered by his own father, who had used the accident to eliminate him, after learning he wouldn't donate marrow. The letter ended with a plea for Amelia to take care of Lily, and to live a happy life, far from the shadows of the Vance family. He also gave one final hint, a name, Lucas. David said that Lucas was the friend who had helped him stage the accident, and Lucas was the only one who knew the full truth about this conspiracy, the one who could provide evidence against Richard. Amelia finished reading the letter, her hands trembling. She felt a horror rising within her. Her husband hadn't died in an accident. He had been murdered by his own biological father, a ruthless man who would stop at nothing to achieve his goals. The pain of losing David, now mixed with burning rage and a fierce desire for revenge. So, the strange man at the funeral was Richard Vance, David's biological father. He came there not to mourn his son, but to ensure that he had succeeded in eliminating a threat, so that he would no longer be an obstacle to his plans. The triumphant look in his eyes, his chilling words, now all became terrifyingly clear. Amelia felt her whole world turn upside down. Her happy marriage, her peaceful life, all were a veil concealing a profound tragedy. David had lived in fear and secrecy, and in the end, he had paid with his own life. Tears flowed again, but this time they were not tears of simple sorrow, but tears of indignation and determination. She had to find Lucas. She had to expose this truth. She had to bring justice to David. This was a battle, and she, a seemingly fragile woman, now had to become a warrior to protect what was left of her family and unmask the perpetrator of all these crimes. After finishing David's letter and understanding the horrifying truth, Amelia felt a heavy weight on her shoulders, but at the same time, a fire of anger and determination blazed in her chest. She was no longer the grieving, fragile woman from the funeral. Now, she was a warrior, carrying the mission to seek justice for David and protect Lily's future. David had trusted her, and she would not let him down. Amelia's first task was to find Lucas, the friend David had mentioned in the letter. David hadn't provided a specific address or contact information for Lucas, only that he was a computer and engineering expert, and the only one who knew the full extent of the conspiracy. Amelia recalled David mentioning an old friend who worked in high-tech, an eccentric but extremely intelligent person. David called him the tech wizard. She rummaged through David's old contacts, looking for names that sounded tech-related, and finally, she found a name, Lucas Thorne, accompanied by an old email address and phone number. Amelia contacted Lucas via email. She wrote briefly, "I'm Amelia, David's wife. I need to meet you. I've read his letter. It's very important." She didn't say too much to avoid drawing attention, but she believed Lucas would understand. A few hours later, Lucas replied. He agreed to meet her at a small, discreet cafe in the suburbs, away from prying eyes. Amelia arrived at the rendezvous point with extreme tension. When Lucas appeared, she recognized him immediately. He looked haggard, with dark circles under his eyes and disheveled hair, as if he hadn't slept in days. Clearly, he too was struggling with his own burdens. The meeting took place in a tense atmosphere. Amelia handed David's letter to Lucas. He read it with a heavy expression. When he reached the end, he sighed, burying his head in his hands. "I'm sorry, Amelia," Lucas said, his voice hoarse. I tried to warn David, but everything happened too fast." Lucas began to recount the story from his perspective. He confirmed everything David had written in the letter. David had come to him to stage a fake accident, a simulated death to escape Richard Vance's control. Lucas, initially hesitant but out of friendship with David, agreed to help. He had created fake evidence, faked the accident scene, and even arranged a secret hiding place for David in a distant country. However, Richard Vance was too powerful and cunning a man. He had a vast network of information, and eventually he discovered David's plan. "It wasn't me who betrayed David, Amelia," Lucas said, his eyes filled with regret. "There was someone else in Richard's network who found out. Richard turned David's plan into reality. He used that accident to kill David, after learning David wouldn't donate marrow to him. Richard is a monster, Amelia. He will stop at nothing to get what he wants." Lucas had collected evidence. He had recorded conversations with David, emails exchanged about the plan, and most importantly, he had secret audio recordings of calls between Richard and David, where Richard openly threatened David and revealed his malicious intentions. Lucas said he was ready to testify to confront Richard, so David could rest in peace. With Lucas's evidence, Amelia knew she had a chance. She contacted Mark, David's lawyer friend. When Mark heard the story and saw the evidence Lucas provided, his face changed color. He had known about David's past, but he hadn't known it was this bad, and he couldn't believe that Richard Vance could do something so horrific to his own son. "Amelia, this is a complex and dangerous case," Mark said, his voice serious. "Richard Vance is a very powerful man. He can easily hide anything. We need to be extremely careful." Despite the risks, Amelia was determined. She couldn't let David die in vain. She, Mark, and Lucas meticulously planned. They couldn't confront Richard directly and hastily. They needed a strategy to expose the truth to the public, making it impossible for Richard to escape. Mark used his connections in the legal and journalistic fields. He contacted a renowned investigative reporter, Sarah Miller, known for her articles exposing crime and corruption. Sarah was very surprised to hear Amelia's story. She agreed to cooperate, but with one condition. Amelia had to be willing to go public with everything, face the danger, and tell her story publicly. Amelia agreed without hesitation. Weeks later, a sensational article appeared on the front page of a major newspaper, with a shocking headline, "Billionaire Richard Vance accused of murdering secret son. Was David's death no accident?" The article detailed the relationship between David and Richard, the bone marrow donation plot, the fake death plan, and most importantly, the evidence provided by Lucas, including the horrifying audio recordings. The incident quickly caused a public outcry. Richard Vance, once a respected figure in the business world, now became the center of a murder scandal. Investigations were launched, and with public pressure, the police were forced to get involved. Lucas Thorne was granted witness protection, and his testimony became the core evidence. Richard Vance tried to deny all accusations, using his power and money to cover up the truth. He hired the best lawyers, attempting to tarnish Amelia's and Lucas's reputations. But the evidence was too clear, and Lucas's testimony too convincing. Furthermore, the appearance of Anna's journal and the story of her tragic life sparked a strong wave of public outrage. People couldn't believe that a wealthy and powerful man could be so cruel. The trial took place. Amelia faced Richard Vance, the man who killed her husband, David's biological father. He looked old and gaunt, no longer having the arrogant demeanor he displayed at the funeral. His eyes now held hatred and despair. Amelia stood before the court, recounting her story with a strong and firm voice, despite the tears streaming down her cheeks. She was not just David's wife. She was his voice, Anna's voice, and the voice of all victims crushed by power. Finally, after a dramatic trial, Richard Vance was convicted of murder. He received a fitting sentence for his crime. David's death was no longer a secret. The truth had been brought to light. Amelia felt a burden lifted, but the pain remained. David was gone, but at least he had received justice. She looked at Lily, who now understood some part of the truth, and knew she had to be strong for her daughter. Their lives would never be the same, but now they could begin a new chapter, no longer haunted by Richard Vance's shadow. This case changed Amelia's life forever. She not only lost her beloved husband, but also discovered a dark world full of conspiracy and betrayal. But she also found strength within herself, the strength to face the truth, to fight for justice, and to protect those she loved. The battle was over, but its echoes would remain. Amelia knew that wounds would heal, but the lessons and strength she had gained would always be with her. She would tell Lily about her father's courage, about his love, and about how the truth always prevails, no matter how difficult it may be. The truth, as Amelia discovered, can be a heavy burden, a painful revelation that reshapes everything you once held dear. Her journey through grief, suspicion, and ultimately, a harrowing search for justice, reminds us that beneath the surface of even the most ordinary lives, profound secrets can lie hidden, waiting for the opportune moment to erupt. David's story, tragically cut short, serves as a stark reminder of the lengths to which some will go to escape their past, and the shocking reality of power, greed, and family ties twisted into something unrecognizable. Amelia's courage, her unwavering determination to uncover the truth for David and for Lily, is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable betrayal. What do you think about Amelia's fight for justice? Have you ever encountered a secret that changed your perception of someone you thought you knew? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your stories and insights are always valued here. If Amelia's journey resonated with you, and if you want to join us as we continue to explore the depths of human experience and unravel more captivating mysteries, please give this video a like, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss another profound story from our channel. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.